And welcome everyone to another off-season episode of Isles Talk. My name is Paul Kreischer. I'm your host this evening. Joining me this evening, we got a full crowd here tonight. I don't know why he said this. The godfather of Isles Talk, Mr. Gary Harding. Gary, I know this is your idea, but how are you?
Hi, Paul. How are you?
Okay. And since we just did that little Van Halen reference before, we always play this song. We take him out to parties, and the first song we play is Just a Gigolo by David Lee Roth. He is the one and only Joe Pinateri. Joe, how is your head from all that swelling after you picked Florida to beat Boston?
Swelling's down. Took a couple of Benadryls,
Yeah, that's it.
Got rid of it. I got lucky with that one.
Yeah, you did. He wasn't supposed to be allowed back on the show for a little while, but he's here now. We still love him. And ladies and gentlemen, finally on the show from The Athletic, Mr. Kevin Kurz. Kevin, how are you? Thanks for showing up.
Yep. Sorry about Saturday, but we're all good now.
We're good now. All right. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, as for the loyal followers, you guys know I do the draft pretty much. I start doing the research around the playoffs, and I start coming up with different themes even for next season. And I just told Gary, I didn't even realize this is my 15th year covering the draft, 12 or 13 of them now for Isles Talk. And Kevin, you came up with two interesting stories on The Athletic. We'll put those links down on YouTube later on. I wanted the first article you put up, and I stole your picture here of Lou Lamoriello and Kyle Dubas sitting together. You said they were there for an hour.
Yeah, probably more than that. Yeah.
And that doesn't surprise any of us here, because once you're a part of Lou's circle, even on a personal basis, you never leave.
Yeah.
He's always there. But what intrigued me was the idea of possibly bringing in a protege for not just Lou, but I think for Chris as well. So give me a quick synopsis of what that article was for people who weren't able to read that article.
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously the big news in hockey, and it's still sort of it's still sort of percolating throughout this week, is Kyle Dubas getting let go from Toronto. And obviously he and Lou are known to have a good relationship. My tweeting of that photo was simply to remind everyone that these two are still very close. It was just something I noticed that day we were in Toronto. I think it was in January. Those two kind of sitting away from the media crowd by themselves through the Maple Leafs skate. Then we go in the Maple Leafs dressing room, come back out for the Islanders skate, and they were still there. So, clearly they were had a whole lot to talk about. I don't think it takes an hour and a half to talk about Pierre Engvall, which was obviously a move a little bit later. And listen, it's who knows what they were talking about. They could have been just talking about life in general. I'm not suggesting that they were talking about any sort of plan of succession for Lou once he retires, but it was just reflective of the fact that these two are very close. We still haven't heard from Lou yet. We don't have confirmation that he's going to, remain in the general manager's role. He probably is at this point, let's face it, but Dubas is right now unemployed. So I think they're just because of that link between him and Lou, it's worth at least talking about whether there might be some sort of something there, frankly.
No, I like the idea. Me personally, I like the idea of having another person involved. I don't know if it's Kyle Dubas or not, because I think once the Islanders go on a 4-game losing streak, everyone's going to scream for Lou to retire and put someone like Dubas in. Mm-hmm. Joe, you and I have been saying this now for a while. And in fairness also with Gary, because Gary and I were there at the Islanders Booster Club a few years ago, we've been given the impression that Lou writes his own ticket. And he said to the Booster Club, as long as he is physically able and healthy, that he is going to continue to be the GM. Nothing would surprise me at the moment. if both Lamoriellos were around for 3 to 5 years, with Lou going for as long as he can, with Chris taking over. But, is there anyone you think who can be that next general manager who has kind of like a same philosophy on building a team?
When we were off camera, I brought up Rob DeMaio, former Islander, and I believe he's with the Anaheim Ducks as an assistant GM. But if you're going to bring in someone, I think you bring them in as an advisor.
Yeah.
Just to see where you can get the team to, because I mean, Lou had success everywhere he went, but people see a 4 or 5 game win streak and they want the losing streak. Sorry, win streak. Where am I? Losing streak, and they want the GM fired. They want the head coach fired. They want everybody, out of the building, off the team. You don't do that. The guy has success. Look at his success with the Islanders as far as the playoffs. Now, the team has those mental lapse losses where they lose 5 or 6 games in a row at the wrong time, but you can't blame the GM for that. That's on the players. He put together a strong team. The team didn't succeed at what the goal was, to win the Stanley Cup. But I think if you're gonna remove Lou and say remove Chris Lamoriello, I say you bring in a guy like Rob DeMaio, who's an assistant GM, and you let him come in, as the Devils did with Fitzgerald, and you let him build the team. That's it. I mean, if you're going to do it, you do it from scratch.
Gary, give me your thoughts real quick. You and I were both at that Booster Club meeting, and he basically said, unless there's something physically wrong with me, I'm here.
Exactly. And I'm just going to reiterate on Joe's point too. I mean, you saw what Calgary did this week by bringing Craig Conroy in, who was for the last 9 to 10 years a protege of Brett Treveling, before he was let go. So, we're under the same thoughts process that, somebody with a plethora of assistant experience, would be the possibility if Lou doesn't, decide, maybe tomorrow that he is going to go, so, I kind of echo the same thoughts.
I think Kevin? You have to, so many teams, Lou is the president and the general manager, right? There are so many teams that seem to be trending towards separating those into 2 separate roles. We just saw Philadelphia do it with Keith Jones and Danny Briere. Pittsburgh, before they let them go, Brian Burke and Ron Hextall were both there. Obviously, Toronto with Shanahan and Dubas. Lou is doing both of those things right now. So I think the possibility exists if he doesn't maybe want to do everything that's involved with both of those 2 jobs, could remain as president and then bring in a general manager, as long as that's something that ownership would be on board with. So that's part of the reason I brought it up. I mean, this isn't a situation where you necessarily have to fire Lou and bring in someone else. Right. You could Absolutely. Keep him as the team president, let him remain involved, let him remain as sort of a shoulder for whoever hypothetically this new GM would be. And then, if he still wants to be involved and he's like you're saying, he said he's healthy enough to be involved and wants to still run a hockey team, he can still technically do that. Being a general manager there's a lot that comes with that. It's a high pressure job. It's an everyday job. You're glued to your phone. There's stresses that come with that. I do think that Lou is still physically and healthy. He's able to do that. Every time I've talked to him, sure. He certainly doesn't come across as a guy that has 1 foot out the door to retirement. But there is that possibility that if he wants to remain, he can remain in a president role and also bring in a general manager.
Joe, you had a perfect segue about the team and the inconsistencies there. Some of those inconsistencies was actually with the youngsters trying to adjust to Lane Lambert's system. If those kids were playing in Bridgeport, they were used to a defensive first system and Brett Thompson, and then they had possibly Barry Trotz the year before. And then you come up to another different style per se with Lambert with a little more offense. And Kevin, you just wrote an article, give me your grades for on Lambert, the pluses and minuses from Lane Lambert.
Yeah, I thought he was fine. I don't think I don't think he did an outstanding groundbreaking job, but I don't necessarily think he should be out the door either.
Right.
You certainly have to give him credit most of all for finding a way to get this team into the playoffs after Matthew Barzal got hurt. I mean, that really is probably at the top of the list of what stands out when you're trying to evaluate him. Now, obviously on the flip side, the fact that they had to make a run like that just to get in was also not ideal. You want to be in a good position January, February, so you don't have to do what the Islanders did, where basically they had to rely on the teams all around them to also, shit the bed, for lack of a better term. Which is what Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Detroit. I mean, all these teams, that's what they did. The teams that didn't get in. And normally, I think when the Islanders finished was 93 points, usually that doesn't get you in. So they got a little bit fortunate in that regard. And, the fact that they couldn't break out of that slump, especially that scoring slump early in throughout January and February, where it was something like 13 out of 14 games, they had 2 or fewer goals. Yeah. That's partially on the general manager as well, for obvious reasons. Did this team have enough players that could put the puck in the net? They probably didn't. So it's not all on Lambert. But then you look at the fact that the power play was so bad for basically the duration of the season. There was one little stretch, I think they were really good, but for the most part, they never got that going. He mishandled some guys, Josh Bailey in particular, scratching before his 1,000th game. That clearly did not sit well with Josh, and he kind of lost him after that point. And Bailey deserves some of the blame for that too. I think when you evaluate a coaching staff, you are always looking for growth in young players, or at least you hope they take another step. The fact that Noah Dobson did not take another step, I think, is maybe the biggest black mark against Lambert and the job that he did this season, because we all saw Noah Dobson play so well the tail end of 21-22. Why didn't that guy ever emerge at all on a consistent basis this season? That is a little bit troubling. But then on the flip side, he did incorporate guys like Hudson Fasching and Sebastian Aho. He got them to really buy in, and he recognized that those guys could contribute. So, you can do this all day. It really feels like the positives and the negatives were evenly divided when you're trying to evaluate Lane Lambert. So as long as Lou's back, I certainly at this point wouldn't expect them to make any sort of move. I would expect Lane to be here, but we'll see. Is he a guy that if nothing changes and the Islanders essentially run back for the most part the roster they had this past season that they finished with, which they're probably going to have to do for the most part, is he going to be a guy that is maybe on the preseason hot seat lists? I mean, he might be, but I think he does deserve maybe a little bit more time with this team now that he's gotten that first year under his belt.
Yep. Quite the adjustment period, probably for everybody. Kevin, we know you're going to be short on time here, but I want to talk about the playoffs so far this year. Joe, give me your thoughts. I mean, obviously you had Florida beating Boston, and again, kudos to you on a serious note. Yeah, shut up. Can't be serious with him, Kevin. I just can't. What's been your favorite series so far, Joe, on these NHL playoffs? I mean, they've all been phenomenal. They've had tons of overtime. But what teams have really stood out for you during these playoffs?
I'm just amazed how Florida and Vegas don't give up goals off of defensive zone turnovers. If a forward turns over the puck at the blue line, they just collapse right in front of the goaltender and battle till they retrieve the puck. They're just not giving up those. How how do you want to call it? Those bad timed goals. You
Puck
know,
luck.
they're playing. Well, I wouldn't call it puck luck, because at this point, that's the way they play their system. It's not puck luck. They're actually bees defending the hive. I would call it, because they're just not giving up that turnover goal, and it's two teams doing it. And what amazes me about Vegas, they're the first NHL team to start 4 separate goaltenders in a row and win those 4 games. So their defense has it. They get it. The other teams, I mean, we all saw Dallas just fall apart last night. Their spirits are broken. Carolina too. You're sticking your face into a bee's nest with these two teams. They have it. They know how to win.
Gary, give me your thoughts. NHL playoffs.
Yeah, I'm really disappointed with Dallas. I was, in the back of my mind, I'm always rooting for them if my Isles are out. But just the way they collapsed, and you just see how Jamie Benn just snapped. That was really, he usually is a pretty tough guy, but just the way, after that goal, you just saw him go after Pietrangelo, and it just, and they announced a 2-game suspension for him, and absolutely, I think he's only going to serve 1. I don't know if they would extend it into the 1 game next season, because I just think Dallas is completely toast, and it's just, again, a testament to Vegas's game, and Cassidy is. You could see what kind of a coach he's been, taking those guys to the next level, and I'm really surprised that that Florida is 3 up, but to me, I thought 2 of the games, I thought they played better than Carolina played better than Florida, and it's just it's just a testament to the hard work those teams have done. That's caused them to be 1 game away from a Stanley Cup final, which I'm sure most of the NHL executives would never have wanted to see, let alone have happen in front of them.
Kevin, I got to ask, now that the Islanders season is over, are you looking at the NHL playoffs more as a fan, or are you still at work? Are you still writing for the Athletic on the playoffs?
Well, they had me cover a little bit of that Devils Carolina series, which was fine with me. I mean, I'll happily go cover more playoff hockey if I have nothing else to do, right?
Nice job to have.
Yeah, it was, and the Devils were a fun team to watch. I got lucky because one guy that I covered in San Jose, Timo Meier, scored the first goal in their win, so that gave me an easy angle to write that night. But yeah, mostly I'm just looking from the outside, and I'm always interested in the people that I covered in the past, right? Pete DeBoer I covered for years. Joe Pavelski I covered for years. Brent Burns in Carolina I covered for a long time. So sometimes I'm maybe a little bit more keyed in on those guys just because I know them. And a guy like Pavelski is someone I just have the utmost respect for just because of the way he handles himself and the way he's kept himself in shape. And really, I guess you could say the same thing about Brent Burns too. So those are 2 guys that I enjoyed as people and I enjoyed covering, and same with Pete. So, you never root in this job. You never root for one team over the other in this job, or at least you never admit it. But there's obviously, I've been doing this a long time. So there's players I know sprinkled throughout the league. Sometimes, you think to yourself, boy, I'd love to see that guy win a Stanley Cup because he really deserves it. But I'm with Gary. I think that the Stars are toast. Not necessarily counting Carolina out just yet. I don't think they're going to get swept. I think they'll find a way to at least win 1 or 2 and make it interesting. But Sergei Bobrovsky for me is the story of the playoffs. Both him and Matthew Tkachuk.
All right, so 2 more questions here, Joe. Real quick, let's have some fun here. Let's just assume for now it's Vegas and Florida, bearing any kind of a meltdown. I know you want 7 games, 3 overtimes in each game. I know that. This has to be the most anticipated. This has to be the most anticipated Stanley Cup for a while. Who would you like to see win? Don't pick me a winner. Who would you like to see win?
Well, it's going to be a hard-fought series.
Absolutely.
It's going to go long because the goalies themselves could steal any game at any time. Wow. I'm going to say wow. I'm going to have to go with Vegas
Okay.
Just
No
because
right or wrong answers here, but go ahead.
I just think they're a little deeper, lines 3 and 4,
Okay.
and I just think their defense is just a little bit more grittier.
Okay. Gary?
I'm buying the same thing. You know, as much as I think it would be great for South Florida. You know, with Miami, the Heat doing so well, and the Panthers doing well. I just see Vegas just a little bit deeper. I mean, Hill's been a great story in net again. You know, the fourth goaltender, and you know he's a fabulous story. But so yeah, I'm gonna lean that way too.
Okay. Kevin?
Yeah, I think Vegas also. I would pick Vegas over Florida.
Okay.
I like some of the veterans on that team, guys like Stone and Pietrangelo, especially Marchessault. I think they're just really hungry at this point. They've, you know, so many of those guys have been so deep previously in the past, and I think you probably learned from those experiences. So I would go with Vegas. Obviously, the X factor is the goalie, but I would pick Vegas to win that series.
Beautiful.
Kevin, let me
I
ask
got
you
one more
something
question.
about that. Sorry,
Sure.
sorry, Paul. From a media standpoint, I mean, I know you say you got to, you know, you run your biases, but what do you hear around the league about the perception of Vegas coming in? You know, this is year 5. You know, they've only missed the playoffs 1 year out of the 5 and have done damage. I mean, what does it say from the rest of the media standpoint about an organization that comes in out of nowhere and does what they've done?
Well, I think everyone views it as they had very favorable terms in the expansion draft, and obviously they sort of tricked some teams in getting so many good players.
George McPhee with a
yeah.
savvy move.
Yeah, they made a lot of real good moves. You know, that's why I was kind of surprised Seattle had such a bad expansion draft. But I guess maybe it looks a little bit better this year. But that's a whole nother story. I think they were kind of gifted some players along the way. But, you know, I think when they made the finals that year, everyone was sort of, you know, like I was saying before, you have those players that have learned from their past experiences, and you had them playing Washington in the finals. And I think a lot of people at that point were sort of hoping Ovechkin would get his cup just for everything he had been through
Right.
up to that, you know, everything he contributed to the game up to that point. So, you know, you have to give them credit for really going for it every year and for making some strange moves along the way, whether it was giving away Max Pacioretty, the trading Marc-Andre Fleury, right? They made a lot of moves that I think people were kind of shaking their heads at the time, but they're pretty close to a Stanley Cup now. So if they get there, no one's going to be questioning anything they've done really for those 5 years in my mind.
Okay.
Can I ask Kevin
right,
a question? Real quick.
Yeah, sure.
Yep.
Kevin, if the Islanders are out of the playoffs come the trade deadline this upcoming season, is this the year that they start moving some of their named veterans to get value back?
I would think so, but I mean, so many of these guys have no trade clauses or some sort of trade restrictions in their deals, right? So you would maybe entertain that. I mean, that's what are we? We're 10 months away from that. I mean,
Yeah.
I sometimes have trouble with those questions because so much can happen. We've seen things happen so quickly in this league where stuff comes out of nowhere, whether it's a blockbuster trade or a guy gets hurt or, you know, the way I look at that is this. To me, when they re-sign, this is sort of, maybe this is being too, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but, you know, when they re-signed Cal Clutterbuck to a 2-year extension at the trade deadline last year, when they could have flipped him, that to me said, okay, here's a guy that is a veteran leader. He's obviously, his best days are behind him, but he can still contribute as a fourth liner, as a hitter on the penalty kill. That's the window. That's the window that they look at. And I wrote that in the Dubas piece. They looked at this as a 2-year window. This was the first year of that window.
Yes.
It didn't happen. You look at the way their roster is constructed, they can't really, and, you know, barring anything unforeseen, they can't really blow it up this offseason. Maybe you trade a guy or two, but you're going to have basically the same core back next season. And you go for it again. If they're out of it by the trade deadline come March, yeah, anything could be on the table. But it's so clear to me that their philosophy is just try to get in and make some noise, because that was something that Lou said throughout the course of, well, he's always said that.
Right.
Yeah.
And
that's it.
true to his word, they got in, and they gave Carolina a good fight. They didn't go down easy. Losing 2 games in overtime, right? A couple bounces, Sorokin makes a couple saves. They could go either way. So there is something to that philosophy. And obviously we saw Florida knock off Boston. So I think they would have to be really buried for them to start making any sort of big moves or to start selling at the deadline next season.
The final question here, I've got it's a couple of steps back from what Gary and Joe have been asking. You were with San Jose for covering San Jose for 10 years.
Yep.
You've seen retools in San Jose quite often. What do you think of the Islanders and the way they're retooling so far?
I mean, are they really? They're sort of trying to just stay, in their win now window.
Okay.
That's what the Horvat trade was, right? And signing him to an 8-year deal. So I wouldn't call them a retool just yet. I mean, to me, a retool is maybe you recognize that a certain season you're going to have to take a step back in order to try to take 2 steps forward. These guys are not in take a step back mode yet. And I don't expect them to be this offseason. And I think the soonest that'll happen will be a year from now, or maybe the trade deadline, like we talked about, if they're way out of it. Now, this is still a team that, to me, they're still trying to win a Stanley Cup. They surely recognize they're going to have to make another move or 2 in order to do that. That's not going to be easy considering their cap situation, but you got to go out and find another puck-moving defenseman, at least one more puck-moving defenseman, if not 2. So I think if this team's going to make any major changes in the offseason, it might be with the defense. But no, I don't think I don't expect them to take a planned step backwards anytime soon. And that to me is what a retool means. And maybe we have different definitions of that, but that's what I think. Because San Jose actually did that. Coming off, they got reverse swept by the Kings. They took a step back the next year, and then they made the Stanley Cup Finals. And that was, the plan was to take a step back, preserve salary cap space, go trade for Erik Karlsson, and make a run for it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
No, Kevin, that was perfect. Thank you for coming on. We know you're pressed with time, and we really appreciate you staying on a little longer. We have a lot of off-season questions that we're not going to throw at you now from the fans, but we'll get you back on over the summer. And once again, we really appreciate it.
Yep, you got it, guys. Thanks,
Kevin.
Thank you.
Okay, Kevin. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yes.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, that was good.
That was fun.
Yeah. And again, with covering the draft, I'm the hope here is now like the fans have a better understanding of what's going on. The Islanders really aren't going to be packing it in. They're going to be going for it. As I've written before, and again, Gary Bettman and Scott Malkin have they've already said there's a hotel to build. There's other retail outlets to build at UBS Arena, casino, with inside that hotel. Yes.
You've got it 10 miles down the road. You're not going to put 2 on Hempstead Turnpike.
Of course you are.
Not happening.
It is. It's going to be inside the hotel.
No, it's not.
Are you telling me Belmont, the only racetrack in New York, is not going to have a casino?
No.
Really? You're going to sit there and tell me? Okay.
No. Not going to happen.
Okay. Either way.
I hope you're
still
wrong.
Need to build up the hotel.
I hope you're wrong, but I don't think so.
I know. Still need to build up the hotel and the retail outlets in order for that All-Star game to happen and everything else. They are in it for now. What?
I'm cracking up at Matthew's comment.
I know you are. I know.
That's awesome. That's good. I love it.
I know. This is all love. We know this.
Great.
Oh, yeah.
It's
all love.
That's so good. Thanks, Matthew.
Wait, which one?
I won't say the word.
You're no fun, Paul? No, I won't do that to Kevin with these guys. No,
the watermelon head.
Yeah, well.
No, I didn't even read that one. Anyway,
I want to quote Dan Aykroyd from 1975. I don't want to use the word, but Paul, you ignorant.
That's not nice. That's not nice. No, but we wanted to
I'm
give
the
fans here
godfather. I don't
tonight
have to be
the
nice.
perception starting into the off season. Is there a chance Lou's going to be back? Probably. I think Andrew Gross said something that he was going to be back anyway.
Yeah.
Honestly, I see Chris Lamoriello being the assistant GM, in the foreseeable future. And, we hope nothing happens to Lou in the immediate future. But if something happens to Lou where he physically can't perform his duties, we'll have Chris take over for whatever amount of time that is. And then hopefully, as Joe had said before, we'll bring in someone like a Rob DeMaio who can build the team, scratch up, a
Or
la
Craig
Tom
Conroy.
Fitzgerald. Yeah. Craig Conroy. Absolutely. All these guys. And, that's what you want as Islander fans, because going into the draft, ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you right now, yes, there is a need for a mobile defenseman. Yes, there are, chances that the team needs to make one or two moves, but I can tell you right now, the biggest topic should be Bridgeport this season. And Joe, you and I have talked about this before, and I think Gary and I have talked about this before at separate times. Conditioning is absolutely critical for a lot of these Bridgeport players. Can you go over what we've talked about before in terms of conditioning, having these kids ready? From either one of you.
Well, from talking to, I remember I told you I had a conversation with Mark Howe about teams that
Yes.
make the playoffs and go to the cup. They
Right.
basically have 1 month off, and then they
Right.
have to start getting into condition for the following season. He said, when you start your season, you want to be at 100%. He goes, because by the time the playoff run comes, you got to be at like 108 to 110%. He goes, and conditions the main thing. You bring your play. These players come in shape, especially the players that don't play a full AHL schedule. They have to be in shape. You got to come in tip-top condition. You can't work yourself into shape, during the season or in training camp. It just doesn't happen. So,
Right.
How many times have we said over the years, that they have to bust their humps June, July, and August to be ready? And, I mean, this is what they have to do. I mean, hockey is a 12-month sport. It's not like the 1970s when, basically, the day after the season was over, you drank for 4 months and then got yourself in shape in training camp.
Right.
You don't do that anymore. You've got to, you not only are you're running at a sprint come day one of training camp, not, at a slow jog. So, these guys are going to be, I'm sure, if we take a camera to them right now, they better be working their tails off.
And I will say this now, ladies and gentlemen. Simon Holmstrom is going to be motivated. Samuel Bolduc is going to be motivated.
William Dufour is going to be motivated.
William Dufour and Ruslan Ishikov are really going to be motivated, because I'll tell you right now, folks, if the parent club, if the New York Islanders can stay healthy for minimum the beginning part of the season, you could call up almost any Bridgeport Islander at this point, and they will not look out of place. Gentlemen, we have a 2018 draft that I will be covering in the graduate section of Path to the Draft, where everyone has played at least 5 games, 6 games in Bridgeport, and there'll be more. One of them will not be there, of course, but every single player from that 2018 draft has been a part of this organization, whether it's Bridgeport, the Islanders, or Worcester. That's never happened in the 15 years of me covering this team draft-wise. Every single draft pick. And we just signed 2 more defensemen from that 18 draft. There's a lot of depth, not a lot of star players for now, but that depends on them. Because, the 3 of us have already learned that, when it comes to the American Hockey League, it's up to the players to get themselves to another level. And right now, Bridgeport is coming to they're coming to their apex here, where they're going to be ready to go. They're going to pressure some of these veterans to play better, because if not, they're going to be replaced. And then you have Lou Lamoriello with another $7 million, quite possibly, the following season. So not only is Lou going to have this extra cap space, hopefully from the NHL, but he's going to have all of these younger players for almost pennies on the dollar. And then he can do whatever move he wants. That, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be coming up over the next month. I've got shows coming up in June. I can confirm for you right now, I do have Shane Malloy from SiriusXM with me covering the draft. I also have someone from the college hockey news. I forgot his name right off the bat. I'll shoot myself later. From the college hockey news, we're going to talk about Alex Jeffries, Cameron Berg, and whatnot. I'm working on getting someone from Worcester to come on to the show. I also have Patrick Williams, the NHL correspondent who covers the NHL and the American Hockey League. He's going to be covering the Bridgeport Sound Tigers with me all, on a show this month. So we are going to be loaded. And for those of you who have younger Islander fans, you may want to have them come on to the, have them watch the show, because this is how they're going to learn about hockey, the younger players, the development, what they have to go through, everything else. And so it's literally going to be hockey drafting 101. It's going to be a lot of fun. Plus, with that coming up, I can tell you right now, the Islanders can make a couple of small moves to get younger if they need to. And they can even do that during the season, or they can make a bigger splash and go after somebody else. And in order for me to figure that out, you have to go through the prospects in the system. How are we feeling about Matthew Maggio? I don't think he's going to be a surprise at this camp, Michael, only because I think they're going to let him marinate in the American Hockey League first. Great numbers in the Ontario Hockey League, but if he can put up William DeFore numbers at the American Hockey League level, then I'll be a little more motivated to bring him in.
That was a good question, though. That was a good question.
No, it's an excellent question. And I'll tell you right now, I'm fascinated with Matthew Maggio. I love his speed. I think his two-way game, his 200-foot game probably can use a little more work, and that's okay. As Al Arbor has said before, you can teach defense to a scorer. Okay, but I really am intrigued with Bridgeport this year. I think they're going to go far, and if everyone can stay healthy for at least the first 4 months, look out, because there's going to be enough depth coming through the pipeline. So that's going to be coming up. Joe, final thoughts, questions, comments, concerns?
I can't wait for the game to start tonight.
I
have
know.
a feeling. I just have a feeling
Who do you got?
Florida's going to shut them down. Shut up.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
2-0. 2-0. And what are we doing with Engvall? What do you think? What do you think happens? That's my question to you guys.
I forgot to ask Kevin that one. I was going to go with a gut feeling on that one. It according from what I read from the other reporters, they kind of didn't get that feeling that he might be back. I think he's going to be, he might be a hit or miss. I would love to have him back. You put him with Nelson and a healthy Palmieri. Oh my Lord. Brock Nelson's going to have a shooting gallery on his hands. Like that second line, that could be the best second line in the NHL. I hope he comes back because there's a lot of speed there. Really Gary, what are your thoughts?
I like Engvall's play with Nelson. They were very pragmatic. They were when they were hitting their spots, they were fantastic. And but again, he's got a relationship with Lou, and you wonder, if maybe you can get him for a sweeter deal. Maybe say, look, with things going with some of the contracts that'll come off, of course you do have to sign that guy number 30. That's coming up too, so that is something you have to think about. You hope the relationship with Lamoriello would help.
Sure.
You know,
I would love to see him back. I like his game. He had an instant chemistry with Nelson. Instant.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
With you know, what Michael just said, I don't think you got to worry about Parisi. You know, he's getting another $14 million from the Minnesota deal. You know, you can sign him at the minimum. He wants to be here. He's basically said, you know, if it's not here, it's nothing. They'll take care of him. You know, he doesn't have to worry about a contract. You know, they'll sign him. And you know, he was the hardest working guy this whole year. You know,
Hasn't missed a game since he's been here.
He's the Energizer Bunny, and you know, and that bleeds to the rest of the team, and that's what I like about Parisi.
Yeah.
And I know my wife's sitting upstairs saying yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, and you guys are correct with the cap, and yeah, they're going to have to make it wiggle. I think when it comes to re-signing these free agents, it's always personal. These players have personal decisions to make. I'll take Scott Mayfield as an example. He's been an Islander his entire career. He knows he could probably make more money somewhere else. But if he can take less money to stay with the group that he's been with this whole time, his family doesn't want to move, you're going to take less. So for those of you worried about the cap space, I understand that concern. But when it comes to unrestricted free agents, it's always personal. And honestly, I don't think there's a better GM at this point when it comes to being a family, personal, being really close with your players. I don't think there's anyone better than Lou. And that's been said on The Athletic, and I believe in Kevin's piece as well. The players love playing for Lou. So, if Scott, Mike, I am going to, I'll go along with that. If he wants $4 million, God love you. But where are you going to go? Are you going to go that's really going to make a run for the playoffs? Probably not. I mean, we can make a list of Islander players who chased the money. They went nowhere.
Right.
Nowhere. So, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun, but we're going to get into that a little bit later on. Gary, any questions, comments, concerns, final thoughts?
No, I'm pretty comfortable here. Like I said, looking forward to seeing tonight's game, as Joe said. And
who do you got?
I'm going to go against. I want to say, I'm just going to say, Carolina's going to win one game. I think this is going to be the game. I think they're going to squeak it out. They deserve to win that game. They play. I think they played hard. Bob is just ridiculous. But I'm going to say Carolina's going to pull this one off. Just to be against Joe for a change.
I love it.
All right.
Friendly rivalry.
I love it.
For me,
that's what it's about.
Yeah, I'm actually not going friendly rivalry here. I want Carolina to win only because it doesn't matter what the series has been, the scores and whatnot. I've enjoyed these conference finals immensely, and for my own selfishness, I just want the series to keep going. So I am going to go Carolina over Florida just for my own selfish reasons. Out on the West, does Dallas pull off one victory before they get kapushed?
I hope so, but I doubt it. Okay. With the Ben suspension and the aura of the Stars play, I just can't see it happening. As much as I wanted to, as much as my personal thoughts of it, it's not going to happen.
Okay. We're getting questions about the buyouts and certain players on the team. We're going to cover that a little later on. We're going to, after the draft. Actually, the first buyout period is right after the Stanley Cup playoffs, I believe. Yeah. So in between the draft, all the draft talking that I'm about to do in June, we'll do a show. We'll do the math. We'll, calculate buyouts and whatnot. I'll play armchair GM with you guys. I won't subject Joe or Gary to that. But I think, Brian, I think you're right on that one. I think it is June 15th. And then the second buyout, I believe, is June 30th. So we have about 3 weeks to go on that. I will do a show on that. That's fine. not to tick off Claire, but do I see Josh Bailey in an Islanders uniform next year? I doubt it. In all honesty, guys, unless Matt Barzal and Anders Lee or someone of the players actually stepped up for him and went to Lou, say, listen, we really want him back on the team. That's the only way Josh Bailey stays, in my humble opinion. But at the same time, you brought in Bo Horvat. Matt Barzal's now the right winger. Again, it's something we can talk about later. What happens if Matt Barzal wants to go back to center? Like, these are all different scenarios that we have to take care of before we trade or buy out anybody. So it's a longer process. I'd be more than happy to do a show on that. Conspiracy theories galore. But it'll be an intelligent conversation with it, and we'll have a lot of fun. But give me a few more weeks when I have all the draft covered. And, we'll talk buyouts, we'll talk trades, and we can have a little fun with that. So, gentlemen, thank you for coming on again. This was a lot of fun. This is a precursor to the draft. I also want to thank Kevin Kurz of The Athletic for coming on. Next week, I am going to be talking about the core of the Islanders. Again, it's a little different from what everybody else does. And I believe I'm going to have a guest on the show. I don't know if I'm going to cover the college prospects yet, but I might. If not, it'll just be me on the show, and we're going to talk about the Islanders organization as a whole and developing of the kids and whatnot. So stay tuned.
Want us, Joe.
I know. That's okay. We'll start our own show.
That's okay.
That's fine. Do your own show. That's fine. What do you guys know about the draft?
After Isles talk.
Yeah. After Isles talk. There you go. All right. There you go. If you two are still up. Either way, enjoy the playoffs, everyone. Enjoy the game tonight. And we'll be back next Wednesday. So once again, thanks for coming on. Let's go Islanders, and we'll see you next Wednesday.